Hello, everyone. It is Lark,
And Kimberly.
and this is Auto Asphyxiation. And today we actually are kind of a very somber topic because, you know, I've always felt like, New Jersey is dangerous for women. And it's dangerous for women of all ages. Um, Recently, actually like last week or 2 weeks ago, Vincent P. Batterilli, who's 17, murdered two young women. Um, and you know, he murdered two young women who dared, and one of the young women who he murdered, um, had actually literally like put a restraining order on him. Um, and it didn't get enforced. Um,
At all.
and yeah, Maria Niotis and Isabel Salas. And the thing was so interesting is that they happened at the time of the murder, they were riding an e-bike. And up until this became a national news story, they were just kind of like, "Oh my God, they're riding e-bikes." That was the story, Kimberly.
It was,
Not the fact that this young man murdered them, but the fact that they were on e-bikes when it happened.
yes, it was initially it was presented as a story of two teenagers on an e-bike, which is becoming such an issue in New Jersey. And then people dug a little bit deeper and found out, oh, wait, hold on a second. The e-bike was embedded in the grill of the Jeep that ran into them at 70 miles per hour on a 35 mile per hour street. So, no, it's not just a simple story about the nuisance of e-bikes in New Jersey.
But they really tried to make it that. They really tried to make it about e-bikes, and not about the fact of toxic young man doing whatever he wanted and essentially not getting what he wants, and essentially having to like, despite having a restraining order, even though his, I guess his, this is Union County. And
Yeah.
just so you know, counties in New Jersey are much like cities everywhere else because they literally make city counties and the cities within them are actually they're cities and the neighborhoods become like little cities. So he's in Union County and one of his relatives is a chief, and I think his father allegedly was a former police officer.
Yes, he's a retired police officer. I couldn't find his name.
Yeah.
However, his uncle is the Westfield police chief. His name is Christopher Bettoloro.
Yeah. So this is, a situation where you have a person that is being coddled because it's like good men, a good guy with a gun. He had two good guys allegedly that were with guns in his family, and that didn't stop him from using his car as a weapon. And many men use their cars as weapons, whether it be in planning policy so that you need to have a car in order to get around, or the fact that you need to have a car in order to, essentially not having a car can trap you in your house, or in this situation where they use their car to like run over young women who didn't act in the way that he felt was acceptable. And I feel that this is, it's terrifying that the infrastructure in New Jersey allows people to use their cars as weapons. And this is not, if people kind of, it was an isolated case. Not exactly. Um, I've been in a situation where men have been extremely aggressive to me because they have a car and I'm not driving the way they want. Um, and they essentially give me a consequence, like I'm going to speed up, I'm going to act like I'm going to hit you, I'm going to etc. And then you add the whole point of he knew these young women, and he acted this way. It's scary, it's terrifying, and I don't understand like why New Jersey initially kind of made this story a e-bike story, which is just wild to me.
It's absolutely wild, especially when this young man had a history of parking in front of Maria Niotis's house for about 3 months. Neighbors and friends were quoted as saying. A lot of the information that I got was from like New Jersey 101.5. Oddly enough, they had better reporting about this than NewJersey.com. I thought anyway, which I found really strange because I usually don't like New Jersey 101.5. But yeah, they had that he had been parking in front of Maria's house for about 3 months prior to the killing. The suspected murderer also was a big fan of Andrew Tate. And if our listeners don't know who Andrew Tate is like king of the incels. He is an influencer. He's right now based in Romania. And he's under indictment for sex trafficking, I think. I don't care enough about him to go into detail about him. But he was also a fan of Charlie Kirk. And he live streamed on YouTube after being initially released by the police, and discussed the killing of these girls, and discussed about how they talked poorly about Charlie Kirk and didn't mourn him properly, et cetera, et cetera. And that's really what apparently was the trigger for this, was that he was horribly offended that they didn't mourn Charlie Kirk properly.
This is outrageous. On the day of the crash, he was allegedly, and this thing is according to, I think, I'm not sure, it's CNN 105. I'll link where it is. 15 tickets a day of the crash that included reckless driving, going 70 miles per hour in a speed limit, a street with a speed limit of 25 miles per hour. He was also cited for allegedly driving without a license, a registration, or insurance car. This means that this 17-year-old, I'm going to say man, he knew what he was doing, was essentially driving a relatively new car, a 2021 Jeep, which is, 4-year-old Jeep, with his parents' permission. Even though he was having a restraining order, his parents allowed him to do this. His parents allowed him to essentially murder these, you know, women because they weren't acting right. So everyone does the whole thing. Oh, they were just sluts, so we can like murder them. It's really disturbing that this happened. But I think, you know, despite it being disturbing what's happened, one of the most disturbing things is the institutional support of it happening. The fact that he had a restraining order, the fact that he didn't have a license, the fact that people knew what he was doing, but they were okay with it because boys will be boys. And this is like 2025 in New Jersey, if this was allowed to happen. A place where, one of the highest wage gaps exist in New Jersey, and it's really disturbing that the first uh, inclination of the media in New Jersey wasn't to condemn this man, but was to say, oh, they were on e-bikes, Oh, it's like, oh no, Maria was on an e-bike, so it was just totally okay that he murdered her with his car.
Doing 70 in a 25-mile-per-hour zone.
Exactly. It's like, these two young women could not safely ride, and I hate using the term safe because they hegemony so much weaponizes the term safe, especially in regards to women. And safe just means, I always so often mean safekeeping, keeping you safe in your house that you can't move and and do anything or like leave the house unless you have a car. And the thing is that it's because women make such little amount of money or so much less than men here, that essentially we can't leave the house because we can't really, I mean, we don't have enough money to leave the house. And they do it on purpose. And essentially, your gender and who you are determines so much in regards to how you move around the city and how you move around New Jersey. And I know so many women whose husbands work in Manhattan and who essentially are trapped in their little neighborhood because these cities are neighborhood. Um, they're little neighborhoods. They're trapped in Montclair. They're trapped in Bloomfield. They're trapped in even Jersey City because their husbands have essentially the good car or the good public transit or the money, and they're trapped in their little neighborhoods. And essentially, their only job, the only thing they can do is pick up their kids and take them home. And so if you're a 17-year-old girl and you don't have, or 17-year-old woman, 17-year-old girl, depending on what you want, how you want to view it, and you don't have children, if you're doing anything beyond just like waiting for to get married, you're just a slut. So it's okay if somebody runs you down. And this is what I kind of feel like him. He was just like, no one took them seriously because, oh, they were being mean to Junior, so mean, so horrible.
And that's, that's the thing too, is like in this day and age where parents have like air tags on their kids and they have location devices in their phone and GPS tracking all over the place on their children. Why don't you know that your child is being radicalized by figures like Andrew Tate that preach misogyny and violence against women? Why don't you know that your son is looking up to people like Charlie Kirk who preach misogyny and violence against women unless you're okay with it?
And that's the thing. They are okay with it. And the thing is so very strange is that, as I've kind of gotten older and I've talked to women who have children, um, especially children who are white men, who will grow up to be white men, there seems to be, you know, they want to protect them, protect their misogyny, protect their privilege, protect their rights and they don't have a right to do it, but it's like it's very weird. There's some women who have children that have penises, and all of a sudden they think these children could do whatever they want. And we need to protect them. And it's like, oh, if my son's a psychopath, well, he's my son, so I'm going to protect him in doing that. And I mean, I think that suburban and urban design reflect these essentially, highlights patriarchal and exclusionary values, and it kind of like prioritizes speed and power and enclosure over, connection, safety. I hate using the term safety, but it's like, wow, when somebody's trying to murder you, um,
And
you
you've asked
know,
for, and they asked for help. A long time they asked for help. It's not like this was an isolated incident. It's not like this happened in a vacuum. They asked for help numerous times, repetitively begged, and did not receive it.
well, that's the whole thing. If I've had to try to essentially give someone a restraining order, and I don't know how. I'm pretty sure New Jersey is pretty similar, but in Los Angeles, when you're trying to give someone a restraining order, you have to pay for them to be served. And if they try to do it and they don't succeed, you gotta pay again. So, I mean, it's like you can't even, to get a restraining order means you have to pay for somebody and they have to follow it. And I mean, once you serve someone and they can break it, and the thing is that it's the judge's discretion if they kind of go, oh, did they actually break it or not?
Yeah.
And okay, you're in this small town, the way New Jersey's set up, you're in a small town, so it's like, oh, you definitely it depends if your dad is the police chief, if you're if you're not your dad, your relative is police chief, your dad's on the police force, it becomes a good old boys network. Even in New Jersey, even though it's like, oh, we think of it as a New York metro area, in our head, and functionally in regards to economics, it is definitely New York Metro. But in the minds of these men, and this is how New Jersey continues to exist, it's a little small town, and each man has his own fiefdom. They let them have their own little neighborhood and let them do whatever they want in their own little neighborhood. It's like, wow, on Monday through Friday, you're the bitch to, like, the most rich men in the world. But when you go home in New Jersey, you get to be the big man. And they allow these men to do all these horrible things to oppress people, from their wives to their daughters to the people that their son like, that don't reciprocate their affections. It's viewed as, oh, you're mean, you're horrible, because you're not allowing this man to feel important. Don't you understand, New Jersey? You're supposed to allow a man to feel, and of course this would be white man, you're supposed to allow a man to feel important and powerful so that he can protect us in Manhattan. So he can, like, make sure that hegemony continues to rule. And it's like these, Isabel and Marie broke this code, and were punished with death owing to this.
Exactly. And it's very disturbing to me that people in the neighborhood saw this going on and didn't say something to the boy directly. Like, growing up in New Jersey, in the town that I grew up in, if that was happening, regardless of whether or not, and they didn't really like the police in my town, but they people would have said something. People would have, like, been like, no, get the fuck out of here. The corruption in New Jersey small town police departments and the power that they have in small towns goes so deep that people don't feel empowered to say, get the fuck out of this neighborhood. What are you doing to these girls? Like they would have maybe 20 or 30 years ago, because these boys, just by being adjacent to police, have power in themselves.
Yes, that's the thing. Isabel and Maria didn't, like, literally. They were defenseless against this horrible Vincent person. Let's say his name. I mean, in the way, it's like, I'm like, okay, I don't want to say Vincent Bartolillo or Bartolora, because I don't want to, like, give people who are sadistics, oh, I want to get famous, so I want to kill someone. But at the same time, it's like, you know what? I think it's shaming his family. Like, like, this is your son. Yeah, like, don't try to act like, oh, my baby didn't know, blah, 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 blah. He knew what he was doing. And here's the thing, their parents knew what they were doing. To me, I feel like their parents need to be charged with this crime, because everybody knew. The police departments knew, the parents knew, everybody knew, the schools knew. They all knew what they were doing. And it's kind of like, here's the thing, young women do not have being able to move around. This is one of the first ways that we show our independence as women. And when you do things like, oh, run people down with your car, when you essentially don't listen to women who are being harassed, you essentially take away agency of women, and especially they're, 17-year-old girls. And it's kind of like, oh, in order to stay safe, instead of kind of like fixing these problems, they go, oh, what we're going to do is make it so that you shouldn't leave the house at all. Because you need to make sure that you're afraid when you leave the house. You need to make sure that you are accompanied when you leave the house. You need to make sure that you realize that you shouldn't be outside, because people are dangerous there. Not only that, even if you know who's trying to harm you, we don't care. What you should do is stay in the house. That's how you should stay safe. Not to these people, not that we should curb someone like Vincent, who is violent, sadistic, and explicit about it, what we should do is you should stay off the electric bike because that was like the last thing that just amazes me. Up until like this became national in New Jersey, the story of this story was two girls on electric bikes were run over by a car. And the implication was if they hadn't been on electric bikes, this misogynist wouldn't have killed them and wouldn't have murdered them. We need to keep saying it over and over again. Vincent murdered these girls because he was a violent misogynist. This is a political act. This is political aggression against women. This is part of the political project of this authoritarian fascist government. Sexism is part of that. The fact that Maria and Isabella, I swear to God, they will not have died in vain. I'm going to make this a thing. We're going to make this a thing for 2025. Especially, too, the New Jersey press, how they acted in regards to this is just wild as fuck. Wild as fuck. Oh, the e-bike. Not, oh, the son of a former police officer. No, the nephew or whatever the fuck he was to the former chief of police. No, that wasn't the story. The story was they had an electric bike. Like that was the story. If they hadn't had the electric bike, they would still be alive. It's just like the auto asphyxiation, which is the namesake of the show. It's just wild here. Instead of like taking that into account, they essentially made it their fault for not driving a car
I
that he
just
killed them.
I absolutely crazy to me that like stories like that would be even released before a full investigation was done when at the scene the bike was so embedded in the grill of the vehicle they couldn't get it out. That's not an accident because like somebody like, cut over when they shouldn't have or whatever. Like that wasn't an accident. And it was abundantly clear from the way that the bike was embedded in the grill of the car that it wasn't an accident.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was clear like you're on a suburban street, and I'll tell you something. Okay, culturally it's suburban. Okay, all of New Jersey is urban, but it's a culturally suburban street. And the way it was embedded, it was just a violent act. And I mean, and I hate, we talk about care infrastructure, so often we think about women taking care of men's children. And that is not what we mean by care. That's why I really try to like get out of the whole care conversation. But the thing is this, if say we took the misogyny out of the care dynamic and we looked at like how if care were a central part of value and mobility and planning policy, like to me, it's like him hitting them should have hurt him because we would have had protected bike lanes. He would have had to like get up on the street and like mess up well, more than he did, mess up his car. But because of the way New Jersey suburban streets are set up, he was able to go 70 miles per hour, get up speed and like run them down. I mean, because of the infrastructure, because he was able to make a choice. That's the whole thing. Drivers, people who are driving cars can literally make a choice if you live or die. Because the way the infrastructure is, it's all based on, car driver preference. Does the car driver want to kill you today? If no, then you can live. If not, he does want to kill you, then you will die. And there's really nothing you can do about it because the infrastructure is set up in such a way that it makes it easy for somebody who has like, who's a sadist to go and like run people down. And this is what kind of like, we need protected bike lanes. We need like, why can't a car go 70 miles per hour? If your
What?
whole thing is I live in New Jersey, I live in a suburb. Okay, number one, 95% of New Jersey is urban, but say you're like so into that. Why are cars, especially with all electronic, with all the AI, we can make it so that cars can't go faster than 30 miles per hour. And we should actually make that. So, just like I feel like e-bikes shouldn't go faster than 15 miles per hour, cars shouldn't go faster than 30 miles per hour. Why do you need that? Why do you need to go that fast? The only
Not in a
reason you need to go
residential
that fast because
area.
of, pardon me?
Not in a residential area at all.
Not in the residential area. Exactly. We have the situation where it's like we have all this tech. We can have tech that essentially, slows your car down in suburbia. And maybe when you're on like the Garden State or on the highway, freeway, whatever, then essentially you can go faster. But like we could put mechanisms in place so that you can't go faster than 30 miles per hour or 25 miles per hour in a residential zone. But we don't care because we feel like, oh, speed, the market is more important. We need people to be able to deliver their food, deliver their crappy fast food to people as quickly as possible. It's just wild to me.
Well, they do have very exciting special edition fast food meals, Lark.
Yeah, I know. I'm just like
I'm just
it's
being silly. I'm sorry.
no. But I'm just kind of like it's really amazing, like to me, and they're always steadily trying to get you like Uber Eats. I'm right now I'm in Philadelphia and I'm just kind of like, I'm the reason I'm here is it doesn't really matter why I'm here, but I'm here with a client and the client gave me this free Uber um in order to take Uber for free so I can go around the city using Uber. And the Uber thing was like, oh, you can also get Uber Eats for free. And I'm like, it's like this thing where um we have been essentially kind of like our mobility has been completely captured by the market.
Yes.
Um, and misogyny helps in regards to elite capture of movement by um by power, by money, by capitalism. Essentially now it's like we make money, we create and design our streets not for connection, but to bring us our cheap, crappy fast food as soon as possible.
It go-
That's
it's
like essentially what's happening.
it's gonna be cold when it gets there regardless. It doesn't
E- ex-
matter
ex-
how fast it gets there. It's gonna be cold when it gets there, and you know it is. Like, just go to the store.
exactly. And I mean, here's the thing, like, so much when we have these kind of tragedies happen, the narrative by the media is always it's an accident. Oh, it's a horrible accident. Oh, it was teens just being you know what? Your average teen doesn't try to murder people. Okay? This is not like, oh, well, that would have happened with any young man. No, it wouldn't happen with a young man. It happened with a young man who happened to be a murderer. It happens with murderers, not with young people. Not because he was a teenager. It wasn't because he was young. It was because he was allowed to do horrible things, and because we allow cars to be weapons, we allow cars to be weaponized. um and I think about this: what if this young man had been on an electric bike and he had, you can't, number one, you can't really harm anybody with electric bike, but say he was able to somehow murder these women on an electric bike. They wouldn't have focused on the fact, they would have focused on he had an electric bike and he ran these women over with this electric bike. But because he was a car, no one even mentioned that he was a car. I just said, oh, these two girls on electric bikes. And it is also too to individualize harm, individualize what is happening, make it like an isolated incident. But people are murdered every day by cars outside of guns. Cars are the number one killer of people under the age of 18. They're the number one killer.
People frequently run into the Charlottesville rally. Heather Heyer was murdered by a white supremacist who gunned his car through a peaceful protest. Like, this happens quite frequently, like where the right wing violence is put into a vehicle and they run down people. And this is right wing violence. He was radicalized by right wing influencers. And he had a YouTube channel in which he frequently spouted his right wing ideology, his misogynistic ideology. Again, where were his parents? Where were they?
Exactly. Where were his parents? Where were these people? It is disturbing and just wild. This, we have to start looking at this, looking at these kind of murders by cars as the same way we look at gun, same way people kind of go like, wow, it's weird. Like every time someone gets killed by a gun, it's the same demographic. Well, every time somebody gets run over by a car, and literally it's the same demographic. The same people who are shooting people are the same people who are taking their cars and using them like they use guns. And I feel like we need to have a collective response as feminist urbanists that like to demand the change and like literally at least describe what's happening. Like this is people are using their cars, well, misogynists are using their cars the way they use their guns. They're using them as weapons. And then at the same time, we're kind of like, oh, it's not the guns, it's not the car. What clearly it is the guns. Clearly it is the cars. If that is the number one killer of people under 18 is guns. It used to be cars up until, people just started just killing everybody. And still, sorry, still men stopped just killing everybody. Number two killer of teens is cars. And we don't seem to think there's a problem, which I think is just wild to me. Like, we have these people, these anti-vaxxers who are like, one person dies of a vaccine. You're like, we got to get rid of vaccines. But weirdly, when it's about cars or guns, oh no, freedom,
The,
freedom.
the, right? Like, please just make it make sense. Like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills lately. Like it's very abundantly clear to me that this story is trying to be muddied, if you will. Like, this boy was radicalized and weaponized. He was screaming at the victim's mother as he was being arrested, like screaming, like, "Well, then she shouldn't have called the police on me." Like absolutely emboldened and empowered and not feeling any kind of remorse for the crime that he committed.
And I think, the thing is too is that um I'm not really sure how they were viewed, but Isabel and Maria are in many ways they were kind of white passing. And this is not like any way taking away from anything, but just kind of have this conversation, people who are clearly ethnic, clearly disabled, clearly, other, outside of just being a woman, like, we so often, okay, with women generally, we don't, hegemony doesn't view them as important. You layer LGBTQI, or you layer ethnic minority, visible minority, you label disabled, and because essentially people who typically get run over by cars in New Jersey are often black people, often elderly people, often disabled people, and we kind of view it as, well, they shouldn't have been in the way. And the thing is that it's so weird. I want to say in some ways it's weird because like um even though Isabella and Maria, one was Italian and Italian American and one was Latina, and I'm not trying to erase that part of the identity, but oftentimes in New Jersey that is seen as
Actually, if I
visible.
may,
You go ahead.
Maria was actually from Greece.
Okay, she's from Greece. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and no, thank you for correcting me. I think oftentimes people who are politically viewed as white, who are women, I don't know how can I call this a privilege, but because of that, they're able to stay inside and stay safe because they're just kind of like, oh well, your parents can. I don't want to call it a privilege. It's a privilege that you can be trapped in your house. Something that a lot of people who are more explicitly marginalized or historically excluded don't have the money or resources to not be on the street. And we kind of like, oh, well, the reason why, they get run over is because they don't know how to cross the street properly. Just how these women, it's weird. Like, this is how these women were viewed as, oh, it's totally okay. It's because they shouldn't have been on the e-bikes. They should have just been at home studying. So, it's weird how I don't know if I'm explaining it properly. Like I said, not to disrespect anyone's heritage or anything like that, but this weird thing where if you're not a white man and you're on the street and you die, it's viewed as your fault because you should have been at home. You shouldn't have been in the neighborhood. You shouldn't have been outside. You should have used a crosswalk.
It's that puritanical thread that runs through the United States and especially the Northeast. Like, that women should be inside and white women especially should be inside. And if black women are hurt outside, well, what were you doing wrong? Like, it's all very victim blaming and it's all very the women's fault for whatever it is that has happened. It's always going to be the women's fault.
Exactly. It's always the women's fault, especially too. Why were you on a bike? I mean, here's the thing. It's like very weird how, I mean, I ride my bike every day and how people kind of come at me in this weird way, like, well, why are you riding a bike? Men will often be like, oh, do you want me to give you a ride? Do you want me to help you? Like, why are you riding a bicycle? Like, is something wrong? What is going on that you don't need? You need to like, think of it as young women, like, you don't even have to work, have a job. Why would you be riding your bike? Why would you be outside? Shouldn't you be doing something like, looking pretty for me, taking care of a baby? Like, what do taking care of your younger brother and sister, learning how to cook, learning how to clean things, learning how to serve me? Like, what the hell?
It is. It's all very, and it smacks of like sex assault cases where, it's like, well, she shouldn't have been drunk. What was she wearing? Like, why was she by herself? She didn't have her boyfriend with her. It smacks of that same kind of victim blaming. And it's just really, like my whole this whole case has just like it really has hit home for me. Because like like I was just telling my uncle this earlier, like when I lived out in Warren County, this most recent time, like I drive a Prius, and people in big, huge trucks used to follow me and harass me merely for driving a Prius. I have no stickers on my vehicle. I have no flags, nothing that like I just drive a Prius. And I bought a Prius at that time because I had a long commute and I was trying to save some money on gas. And it became ridiculous. Like it really did. It became ridiculous. Like the violence that people wanted to visit upon me simply for the brand of vehicle that I chose to drive.
No, it's weird. I mean, whether you're riding a bike, using a Prius, or like me, I have a small car, a Fiat, which I didn't even view it as like an offensive thing. Um, and sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not helpful, but it's weird how I feel like it's a weird irritation when people realize that a woman is driving the car. Either they're really overly helpful or they're just kind of overly aggressive. It's really weird. I don't know how to explain it. It's a weird situation in the Northeast. And I feel like, we have to have a situation where it's kind of like, I don't like this whole thing where it's like, we've got to teach women to be on the defense. Have you have your keys out? Do you have and it's kind of like, well, I shouldn't have to do that. Like, can we have a situation where I can just go outside and without having to like keep being reminded that someone wants to kill me because I'm a woman and I'm outside and I shouldn't be outside without a male escort? Like what?
What
Like why do I need to like defend myself before I even leave the house? Why
what
is that
needs
normalized?
what needs to happen is that you folks with these sons need to be aware of the social media and the influencers that your sons are involved in, and you need to teach your sons to be respectful of women. Like Jesus fucking Christ, it's 2025. Like I had hoped for some time that like the young men were like gonna get better. Like they seemed kinder in some ways. Like some of them do. Some of them seem like they are growing and learning the progress of society. But you know, the ones that are going backwards are going really far backwards, really, really fast, and the parents need to do something about it.
Yeah, we can't accept this, but also too, not only with men, but we can't accept our roads, our urban planners to be sexist. We can't allow towns like Cranford, we can't allow towns like in Union County, in Essex County, in LA County. We can't allow Los Angeles County. We can't allow these sites to be weaponized. We have to transform our urban spaces into places that are about connection, joy, like autonomy, so that we can all like walk around in peace, so we can all enjoy outside, so we can all, the outside is not a play toy. It's not a play toy for men only. And for too long, even how bicycles are like the bicycle situation is all about how can we make this as pleasant for men as possible and screw women, screw LGBTQ people, and here's the thing, men are only white. Okay? That's only men are white and middle class. So if you are not middle class, you are not a man, you're not a human being. If you're not white, you're not a human being. And essentially this is what our urban spaces are made for. And I actually even had a book by Dorina Porange. I will actually link that because I'm saying her name wrong. But essentially it was like they actively, our early urban planners actively created our urban spaces to essentially exclude women and exclude um exclude women and exclude, yes, Dorina, that's what it is, Dorina Porjani, Pojani. She works out of Australia, University of Queensland, and she essentially had a book that talked about how urban planners, one of the old urban planners from the early 1900s, he asked women, what do you care about in regards to um what do you care about in regards to the streets and urbanism? And he took their information and then he threw it in the trash. Like he,
And
or
probably and
actually like he kind of like made sure that he didn't he didn't include their thoughts. Like it was wild. Like I was like, what? So then and even like in regards to creating urban spaces, they use the average height of essentially Western European men in order to like make it so it's comfortable for them. So even if you're like a man and you're from Eastern Europe or you're from Latin America and you happen to be a little bit shorter than someone from Western Europe, well, you're not going to be comfortable because essentially yeah, her book, Trophy Cities, A Feminist Perspective on New Capitals. And these things are so important in regards to like, how we get around the city so people know this is on purpose. This is literally on purpose. How you feel like I feel like I can't get around the city. It feels like it's not for me. You're right. They actively, from the beginning of urbanism, they actively made cities just for men. And they specifically excluded you. They asked women what they wanted and made sure to not include it so they would stay home.
well, why would they need to leave the house? They have babies, things to cook.
Exactly. They have babies, they have things to cook, and it's just so I don't know what to say. The cars, the auto asphyxiation is a patriarchal model. People go, "Oh, auto asphyxiation is a dirty title for a show." Well, you know what? Being addicted to your car is dirty business. So that is why that's why we have the name that we have. And with that, is there anything else that you would like to add, Kimberly?
I strongly, strongly suggest I have no power here, but I strongly suggest that the two police adjacent people that were involved with this suspect, if they had any knowledge or any role in the lack of action in this kid's stalking when it was reported, that they have to be held accountable. And I think that they need to look deeper at these parents and hold these parents accountable because this kid was 17 years old and somebody knew, somebody in his circle knew.
They definitely know. 17-year-old doesn't have a late model car and with a essentially stalking people with essentially a restraining order against him without adults in his life knowing. So they can act like, "Oh my God, I'm so appalled." No, you're not appalled. You enabled this. You enabled this crap, and you need to go down too. I'm really against the whole like individualizing things and all this stuff, but people need to learn. And it seems to me the only way that people learn is if they get to face jail time. So, especially in New Jersey, you need to go to jail and you need to pay for this. And my heart and prayers go out to Isabella and Maria. You will not be forgotten. We will, champion this and you will not have been murdered in vain. Not
Absolute,
not not on my watch.
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
And with that, thank you for listening to Auto Asphyxiation. Um, Please subscribe and please go to your planning meetings, advocate for streets that are accessible to people who are not driving, for bicycles, riding. You don't enable this patriarchy. Don't enable the patriarchy by essentially enabling car-centric auto asphyxiation in your planning.
Thank you for listening.